Hi there, welcome to my views and news. Two news stories. Firstly, bad news for the Ethiopian government, which has been trying to influence decision making in the US about an issue related to Ethiopia. Will Trump change the decision made by Joe Biden? Secondly, a minister from Somalia landed in Addis Ababa. Who is this minister? Does it show that both Ethiopia and Somalia are committed to Ankara Declaration and so far everything is good? Talks going to start. Well, while one minister landed in Addis Ababa of Somalia, another minister arrived in Egypt today as well. Parallel visits of Ethiopia and Egypt by two ministers from Somalia. Let's start first from Ethiopia. We know that Ethiopia and some other countries, African countries, had duty-free, tax-free access to US market. So some Ethiopian exports like textile, other exports, they had duty-free access to US markets. And industrial zones in Ethiopia were producing, were manufacturing export quality material, export quality products to be sold in US markets. That was definitely a source of revenue for the Ethiopian government. At the start of 2022, Ethiopia was removed from this concession. That concession is called AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity. Back then, when Ethiopia was removed from AGOA, it was accused of committing human rights violations. And that was mainly uh, due to what was happening in Tigray and Amhara. Ethiopia, that was a blow to Ethiopian economy, definitely. Ethiopia since then has been trying to influence the US government to review its decision. And it was being hoped that maybe at the start of 2025, US could review this decision. The last 3 years, Ethiopia has been suspended from AGOA. Some other countries too, African countries. But Joe Biden government, Democrats, have announced that Ethiopia will continue being prohibited under AGOA. Its duty-free access to US markets is not being restored. Obviously, not a good news for the Ethiopian government, which has been hoping that it will regain access to US markets, tax-free access. And it's because of the human rights situation in the country, because Amnesty International, others, they're releasing reports about the crisis in Amhara. And the main human rights violations are being committed in the Amhara region. Conflict in Amhara is being internationalized by human rights organizations. They're releasing reports about civilian killings, about extrajudicial killings, about excesses being committed by security forces against people, against civilians, against politicians. That is why. And Amhara diaspora community has also been launching diplomatic campaigns abroad to convince the US government to stop supporting the Ethiopian government. That is why Ethiopian access to US markets not being restored. But will Trump change that? Not likely. Republicans are not likely to change that, though it remains to be seen. Good news for Ethiopia is that Macron promised yesterday in Addis Ababa that the loan rescheduling of Ethiopia will be finalized very soon. Ethiopia wants rescheduling of its loan payment. It wants the payments which it needs to make to be deferred. And France has been one of the main players. Uh, it has been a Paris Club member. It has been leading a committee considering Ethiopian requests to reschedule its loan payment. Macron promised yesterday that Ethiopian request for loan payment rescheduling will be finalized very soon. But what a good news for Ethiopia from the US. Secondly, yours, Somalia is walking a fine line, it seems, trying to balance now between its relation with Ethiopia and Egypt. It remains to be seen about the Egyptian military. Will it be able to enter Somalia? How many? Because now Ethiopia and Somalia have reconciled. Egyptian military entry in Somalia in the form of peacekeepers is uncertain. Two ministers arrived in Ethiopia and Egypt today simultaneously. Two ministers from Somalia. Ahmed Mualim Feki, the foreign minister of Somalia, held discussion with Badr Abdullah, foreign minister of Egypt, in Cairo today. And in Ethiopia, State Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Umar arrived in Addis Ababa. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Somalia issued a statement showing its commitment to Ankara Declaration, announcing the visit of Ali Umar to Ethiopia. Now, Somalia needs to balance its relation with the two countries, Egypt and Ethiopia. Egypt helped Somalia in difficult times. When Ethiopia was threatening to implement MOU, it was Egypt which stood with Somalia. Egypt sent loads of weapons. Egypt promised to train Somalia's forces and deploy its forces to Somalia. And Somalia agreed to host Egyptian military. Turkey then played its role. It secured its investments in Ethiopia and Somalia by facilitating a deal between Ethiopia and Somalia. Now, Somalia needs to ensure that its relations with Egypt are not affected. There were several engagements between Somalia and Egypt in the last few days. Fiki is in Egypt, trying to convince Egypt that Somalia still values Egypt a lot. At the same time, Somalia must ensure that Ethiopia remains committed to Ankara Declaration and talks start. Ethiopia does not implement MOU with Somaliland. That is why Ali Umar is in Ethiopia. People say Sajid. People would say Sajid Ali Umar is a state minister. Fiki is the main man. So main man is visiting Egypt. A lower level minister is visiting Ethiopia, showing Somalia gives more importance to Egypt. Fiki has been very critical of Ethiopia. He's not the right man to visit Ethiopia, I think. He issued some very strong statements, used very strong language against Ethiopia, against Ethiopian leaders. That is why maybe he was not sent to Ethiopia. Thanks for watching.